All right, apologies for those technical difficulties. We are back here inside the Birds pregame live at Fringe Bar. Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, joined, of course, by Greg Cosell and Jason Avant. And we were just remarking how great of a place Fringe is to come watch the game on the 250-foot seat theater and the 50-foot big screen. I'm sorry, 250-seat theater. I said 250-foot theater. I mean 250 seats in their theater with a 50-foot screen, the lemon pepper wings, the burger with smoked cheese and crispy onions, fried cheese curds. Need I say more? All right. Also, during the taping of the show, and we have people here already watching the show live, they feature half-priced wings, $8 Blue Coat gin drink specials, and an Eagles-themed cocktail. It's your new favorite game day hangout, so come support Inside the Birds and Fringe Bar. All right, we're going to get into this show here from a big picture standpoint. So, Greg, I'll go back to you. Obviously, the Bills have had a ton of injuries, especially in the secondary. They've been impacted by that. But I want to sort of get to their defensive structure now with Sean Dermott, who's been calling the plays this year. They had Leslie Frazier, who's taking a year off. Sean McDermott is now calling the plays. Even when healthy, we're not, just stylistically, are they a lot different in play calls under Sean McDermott than they were with Leslie Frazier?
I think you probably see a little more pressure, but they play a lot of split safety coverages, among the highest percentage in the league of playing split safety.
Okay.
They've struggled a bit at corner with injuries and with a draft choice from 2 years ago, Elam, who's turned out he doesn't even play. He's a healthy scratch pretty much every week. So they've struggled at corner. Tre'Davious White obviously went out earlier in the season with a torn Achilles.
In a row.
So, so they obviously traded for Rasul Douglas, who became a starter right away. But, corner's been a little bit of an issue.
Yep.
It's funny. I watch them every single week, and I believe they're second in the league in sacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
sack percentage.
And Ed Oliver's played really, really well inside. But I don't know how you feel, but when I watch them, I don't feel like, wow, this is just an unbelievable pass rush. Like, I don't watch them and think of the Eagles' pass rush. Right. I don't know about you. I don't see them quite the same way. Now, they've had games where they've had a lot of sacks. But I'm not sure they have that one guy. Von Miller's not quite back to being Von Miller. Yeah. I guess we have to wait and see. He's 35 at this point. It might never happen. I just don't see them as being a team where you think, man, they've got a dynamic pass rush, and boy, they can really get after the quarterback. Okay. Now, watch, they'll get 7 sacks today, but but Oliver's played really well. They have length. The one thing they do have with their pass rush is a lot of length.
Okay.
Because Rousseau is 6'6", 6'7". Leonard Floyd is there. He's 6'4", 6'5". Epinesa is 6'5", 6'6". So one thing they do have is a lot of length.
All right, we're going to get into more of that too. Obviously, so with Sean McDermott, you see a little more
pressure,
high safety, a little bit more pressure.
Yeah.
Jason, I want to switch gears and ask you a big picture question about the Eagles as a player. From a player standpoint, 6 of their 9 wins this year have come by 1 possession. They're playing a lot of close games. They're winning a lot of close games. Last year, they had far more blowouts, not this many high percentage 1 possession games. Is that a good thing for this team? A bad thing? How do you just see that?
No, I view it as a good thing all the way. The reason is that you're going to get in close ball games as the teams get better and as the playoffs approach. Teams are going to be there, and a team that's familiar with being in the moment, having to come up with a 4th down stop or convert a 4th down, you get used to doing it and you become better at it. It's just repetition. So, and also the thing that I love about the Eagles is that they haven't played their best game yet, and so they make so many mistakes, but they figure out ways to win football games. You got to say something for that quality. When this team gets, completely healthy and they get to clicking on all cylinders on offense and figure out a way to get better defensively, they're last in the league virtually in pretty much every passing statistic defensively. So they only can get better going forward. So if they can get to 15th, 16th in the league when it comes to passing, this team will be very, very hard to stop. So I think that they're doing a good job winning games. You can always say, well, the Chiefs did this or that team did this and that or whatever, but they're figuring out ways to win games.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's positive.
To your point, the only 1 possession game that they played last year late in the season was the Super Bowl. They rolled through the Giants. They rolled through the 49ers. I forget the last few games of the year. They really, Lane Johnson was out. I mean, they won some games, but meaningfully. So perhaps the lesson to be learned, or the experience now of pulling out these they're making mistakes in these games, but they're winning those games anyway, and maybe there's just something that they learned from that.
Well, just think about this. What other organization around the National Football League have had so many injuries over the years and have been able to overcome them and still win? Everyone else has an excuse. Well, we didn't have this and we didn't have that. All right, we don't have Dallas Goedert. We don't have, right guard most of the season. Lane Johnson goes out for a game. We go out and we continue to execute and figure out ways to win. And that's the sign of a championship team. And you got to give a lot of the credit to Jalen Hurts because he's so even keeled and he figures out a way. This past week, I have to use my legs a little bit more. Let's do that in order to win. And they'll come up with something in order to win the game.
Adam, when we talk about this team going into the year, we talked about this is not the same team from last. People need to understand, especially on defense, that they're getting rebuilt and remade on the fly up the middle, and yet here they are a year later with the same record after 10 games.
Same bye week,
same everything, right? So what impresses you the most when you take all that into account?
All the changes, it's the 7 starters, 5 on defense and 2 on offense. You've got several changes in coaching. You've got two new coordinators. Most of the changes came on defense. You've got 4 new assistant coaches on defense. You've got guys reassigned. Yet they have the same record. Like, we came into the season saying they will not be as good as last year,
right,
because they've lost so many players. But it doesn't mean they get back to the Super Bowl. Why? Because they're really well coached, and they still have same quarterback, same 2-star receiver, same tight end when he's healthy, same great offensive line. We didn't know without Sanders how it would look. We didn't know that Swift would be this good. And there were questions. You didn't know about the young defensive players. You didn't know about Zach Cunningham. Did he have anything left? Yes. Mm-hmm. Could Nick Morrow play? Yes. Though they have interest in Shaq Leonard, but the 2 older corners, there's some issues there.
Right.
But as you set this up, they still able to overcome it. Whereas if we look at the Vikings last year, setting records of coming back in close games in the fourth quarter, we all saw their defense, how bad it was.
Right.
This is not sustainable. They got smoked in the playoffs by the Giants. Not this team.
Right.
This is actually a good team, very good team. Not elite, they're not elite like last year, but it doesn't mean they can't get back because the rest of the league also isn't that good. Not just you want to look at it that way, but that's the truth.
Excellent points. By the way, nice outfit today. I feel like, do you want a hat to match that?
I don't have any. I don't have any.
You don't want a hat?
I have no maze.
Hey, don't give away that hat. That hat is gold, buddy.
Maybe Jason has something in his car.
Well, we talked about all the injuries the Eagles have overcome to still be 9-1, and now is a good time to get into our injury report, sponsored by Garage Beer. It's beer-flavored beer. Imagine that. Beer-flavored beer. Find yours at drinkgaragebeer.com. So the Eagles are healthier in the secondary these days, but they are still not at full strength as safety Justin Evans, who was activated into the 21-day practice window the week before, he remains out with his knee injury. He didn't even practice, which obviously suggests a setback. You activate a guy into the 21-day window to get him into practice, and then all of a sudden he's not practicing anymore.
I cannot remember the last time I've seen that, particularly with this team, where the guy starts practicing, the next week he doesn't practice at all.
Right.
So that's not good because they can use him as a force safety and all that he's able to do. So that's not good. And obviously, Maddox, the only question there is could he come back for the playoffs?
Avante Maddox,
yes,
right?
Yes. So he's on IR, as we know, and Justin Evans, as you said, was activating to the 21-day window. Calcaterra's out, and this one is big. Milt Williams, who's awesome. This kid
having a good game last week.
He's the best, and you can't call him a number 3 D tackle because he starts now. Guys, how good is this player?
He's had a terrific season.
What do you like so much about him?
Well, traits-wise, I mean, he
You were afraid Greg was going to say I don't like him like he did to me earlier.
I'm good. Here. So here's what I would say. I would say in the run game, he is really good at controlling and displacing offensive linemen. He's usually guards or a center, usually a guard, but really good in the run game, controlling and displacing. And he's got better than average quickness as a pass rusher as well. So I remember doing him coming out of Louisiana, and I really liked him. And I was trying to figure out, based on his traits and his size, where he fits best in the league. And with the Eagles, with the way they play their fronts, he's kind of a combination tackle and end because of how he lines up. And in some ways, that's probably the best way to use him because he might not be a perfect fit at just one of those positions. But the way he plays in the run game and the way he just controls and displaces offensive guards is really impressive.
Especially for a guy who measured in at short arms. Usually that's the
right
on there. Right.
But he is 280 or so. I mean, he's not a small guy.
Right. They'll miss his presence today.
Yeah.
I imagine.
So he's out for sure?
Oh, yeah.
He is out.
He's out.
Yeah, concussion, he's out. So imagine Jalen Carter, the rookie, will get a little bit more time, especially in the five-man fronts. And then you might see Moro Ajomo, the other rookie, the seventh rounder, get a little bit more play today. As far as the slot with Avonte Maddox out, healthier, Bradley Roby, Eli Ricks have been splitting time there. We'll get into that.
I'd be curious. We'll get to that, I guess.
We'll get into that.
I'd be curious your thought on that because Roby basically played on first and second down and Rick's on third down.
Yes.
And there's obviously a reason for that. That's not done on a whim, but I don't know what the reason is. Do you know what the reason might be?
No idea.
I know. It's
Now, Roby missed a lot of time, so...
but he played on first and second down and then third down, which is the money down, which you would think, hey, you want your so-called best slot corner out there. Rick's played on third down.
That's interesting. Jason, you as a receiver, if you see that and you see a young corner like Ricks, who's, again, not really a natural slot, are you like, okay, let's go at him?
You base it off of what they show on tape. Ricks hadn't shown, and people were getting frustrated with me online a couple weeks back.
Really?
When it comes to, they were saying Ricks was shut down because he had 5 targets against 5 targets thrown to Tyreek Hill and he didn't catch any. I'm like, dude, chill, wait, like slow down.
They made it sound like he was the reason for that.
He was not the reason for that, and he gets called for holding a bunch, and he doesn't move his feet. And he's young, and to me, at this stage, he's not like a very good corner right now. And that's the only thing I can say. I'm not saying that he can't recover because he's a young guy, but any receiver that's going up against him is like licking his chops saying, like, I can get open on this.
Yeah, he's not a slot corner.
Yeah, and do remember, I was going to say what Greg's about to say is that he was an outside corner, and this is the first time he's ever played.
He's not built to play slot corner.
Right.
He's long. He's about 6'1", 6'2". His just body type is not meant to play in the slot, and he's never played that before.
Right.
But they obviously believed he was the better guy to play on third down this past week.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about how he played against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then project that for today's game against the Bills. Other injuries, we know linebacker Nakobe Dean is out. This will be game 2 of his most recent 4-game stint on IR, but then we'll have to even see with the foot surgery if he's able to get back into the practice window after the 4th game. Nick Morrow, Zach Cunningham continue to replace him. The Eagles also continue to be without Dallas Goedert, who did not go on IR, suggesting that he won't be out 4 weeks, but this is the 2nd straight game he will miss. And as Adam mentioned before, backup Grant Calcaterra is out. He had an ankle injury that he suffered against the Chiefs. So the Eagles are thin at tight end today. You're looking at Jack Stoll. You're looking at Albert
Okwuegbunam.
Good enough. Alberto.
I got Okwuegbunam.
Right. And of course, the team elevated tight end Noah Tungiai from the practice squad to give them 3
He's
for
back
today.
Third time he's been back. Here's the question, guys. You notice how much 10 personnel they played. Is it just because Calcaterra got
11 snaps of 10 personnel.
It's not something they really do.
No, that's a lot.
That's what the Chiefs used to do. So here's the question: Do we think, Jason, we could see that today? That Goddard. Would you do it?
Possibly no, but for me, I would definitely put more receivers on the field because of the lack of depth at corner for the Buffalo Bills. That's just me, and I don't think that Rasul Douglas is going to be able to hold up consistently. He got an interception last week on Zach Wilson, a couple. But to me, if you put him out there in certain situations when they have to play cover 3 or zone or man in those spots, you go at him. But he's a great corner when it comes to Sean McDermott's cover 2, cover 4, cover 6.
He's a keyer in a
He does that. He does great in that in those coverages.
Right.
But when it's single high and it's man to man, no way.
Here's the other reason I think you might see 10 personnel. Taylor Rapp is out for the Bills, and he's their dime.
Right.
So now, if they want to play dime to 10 personnel, you're going even deeper into their depth chart.
Yep.
And I believe they activated another corner this week, Ingram, I believe. So they're hurting a bit bit all through the secondary. So it's possible you could see 10 personnel for that reason.
That's what I was going to say, Jeff. We were talking about this on our Friday preview show. They got Cam Lewis is going to have to play, who's a former undrafted free agent.
He'll probably play safety if they do want to go dime.
Because with Taylor
Rapp's out.
Right. So they've got a real numbers problem. And this staff, for the most part, Jason, we used to ask you this about Andy Reid. Andy always take advantage of the matchups. Sometimes when guys are out, the staff does a good job of that.
I would think so. There you go after it. All right, last thing on the injuries for the Eagles. It's not an injury. Earlier this week, they parted ways with Derek Barnett, who was a 14th overall pick in 2016, a key member of their Super Bowl winning defense. He wasn't playing much. He wanted to play somewhere. The Eagles obliged it. We're told that something was worked out between Barnett's camp and the team so that he could be released without any financial penalties from the Eagles side.
He wanted out. And this just happened this morning. Lane Johnson, last one, that is questionable with a groin issue, which means it happened. He didn't feel right this morning. So you're looking at Jack Driscoll as his backup. That's who I think started every time the last couple of years. Been out,
yes,
right?
Jack Driscoll was
so that is
something to watch.
Yeah.
The last time we saw Jack Driscoll, he was being turnstile.
He wasn't playing well.
Jets.
Yep.
That is correct.
Yes. All right. Last but not least, Quez Watkins is questionable. If he's able to play today, it'll be the first time in several weeks since he's been dealing with that hamstring injury. And the Eagles also elevated for the third and final time linebacker Ben Van Sumeren, who has been a part of special teams when elevated, but this will be the last time that they will be able to elevate him. Right. Third and final time. All right, Bills injuries. We'll try to get through them pretty quickly. We've mentioned that there are a ton of them. Most of them, the biggest ones are injured reserve. They've been out for a while and will not be back. Certainly for this game, you're talking about running back Damian Harris, tight end Dawson Knox, and on defense, one of the best linebackers in the league, Matt Milano. He had leg surgery. We already mentioned cornerback Tre'Davious White, a Pro Bowler. He's out with a torn Achilles. Defensive lineman Daquan Jones, pec surgery, and Khair Elam, who wasn't playing much anyway, but he is on IR with an ankle injury. And also out is cornerback Dane Jackson. He is dealing with a concussion. He's on the 53.
He was actually starting for White.
He was starting,
yeah.
He was starting.
Again, they're really they're down in numbers, man.
Very much so, especially in the secondary. And as Greg mentioned before, safety Taylor Rapp. For those who were able to watch that game Thursday night, I think he left on a stretcher. It looked pretty gruesome. So he is out with a neck injury. On the good news, Josh Allen will be able to start for the Bills. He's playing. He's dealing with a right shoulder that's been banged up a little bit, but he was not. I don't think he was carrying a game day designation.
He's not, but he's had this for several weeks. He's had problems with AC joint sprains. It's his right throwing shoulder. This is another thing that the Eagles know because they do advance and they watch the All-22. They could see when he gets hit there. It's interesting. There's some injury advantages here. Believe it or not, it's rare for the Eagles to have this advantage, but they do in this game.
There you go. All right, cornerback Teron Johnson should be able to play. Adam mentioned Cam Lewis cleared to play. So is Micah Hyde, their safety, who was dealing with a neck.
Johnson's critical because they are the highest percentage nickel defense in the NFL.
He was in the concussion protocol, but he's clear.
And Johnson is the reason for that.
Yeah, got it. All right, let's get to the X's and O's here. Break this game down. Reminder, please share the show if you can. If you have a score you want to leave it, we'll try to read it. We already got 20-16 Eagles from Ronnie C. Carl Stevenson says Eagles 34, Bills 17. Our friends at Rebel Hill Productions go 24-14 Eagles. And we've got 35-17 Eagles, 34-17 Eagles. So far, nobody on the Bills bandwagon. And Carl Stevenson likes to say, hi, Jeff. Nice Michigan hat.
Yeah, Carl. Good job.
Thanks, Carl.
Get him, Carl.
Really appreciate it. All right, to the game. Josh Allen. The last time and the first time Josh Allen played against the Eagles was his second year in the league, his first full year as a starter. So we are now several years removed. He has since become one of the game's better quarterbacks. There is a perception, Greg, and so I'll go with it, that because the Bills' record isn't very good, that Josh Allen is regressing or not having a very good year. It should be noticed he does lead the NFL in touchdown passes, and he has a near 70% completion percentage, which is the highest of his career, and he's got right now the second highest passer rating of his career. Numbers can lie, though. Numbers can be deceiving. What is your scouting report right now on Josh Allen?
Josh Allen is a certain kind of quarterback. He's the most physically gifted quarterback in the league, which is not the same as saying the best. That's always a debatable question. But he's the most physically gifted just in terms of his size, his traits, what he can do. I mean, the touchdown he threw to Shakir last week was just a big time throw. Not a lot of guys can just sit on their back foot and drive the ball a beat late to
That reminded me of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
hey, Dave.
Allen is the thing about Allen, though, that and again, the Bills have won a ton of games. Keep that in mind. I mean, this year they're 6-5, okay?
Right.
But they've won a ton of games the last number of years. Yep. And people remember the 2 playoff games he had a couple of years ago, even though they lost that game to the Chiefs, those final 13 seconds, they may have been the 2 best playoff games a quarterback has ever had back-to-back. Mm-hmm. And people remember that. But Allen's interesting in the fact that he's much more of an instinct player than he is a true precision player. There's too many times when he drops back and leaves the pocket when there's no need to, and he's the one who disrupts the timing and rhythm of the pass game. But he can make special plays that very few quarterbacks can make. And throughout his career, he's made them in critical, high-leverage situations. Mm-hmm. And he can do that any time in a game. What I know they're trying to do with him is to get him to play a little more within structure. But it's a very difficult balancing act because you don't want to take away from those special plays. But on the other hand, you can't live off 5-yard passes and outside of structure plays.
Right.
You need to have those, timing rhythm throws, and particularly now with Joe Brady, the new coordinator, and they did a couple of things last week that were a little different, but with the new coordinator, I'm sure they're trying to get him to move in that direction. But if you look at his one-loss record, and that's what people often look at with quarterbacks, I know people say, well, he's not been to a Super Bowl and all that, but they win a lot of games, mm-hmm. and they're not super talented on offense. So They win a lot of games, and he's the reason they win a lot of games.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback and agree with you. My notes say Josh Allen, when I was doing a study on him, very jittery in the pocket, doesn't trust his protection, will move unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. Just a bunch. He does it a bunch. He makes special throws and special plays with his legs and move around unnecessarily. He can hit you big, but most of their offense is at the line of scrimmage. It's like this gadgety screen, like heavy, that's why his completion percentage is so high, is because most of the balls are thrown at the line of scrimmage. So I wouldn't take that as some world-beating offense. It's just that he can move and he can make special plays every now and again. And when it comes to 3rd and short, he definitely will run for it. And so it makes him dangerous.
He doesn't let the offense work for him as much as he needs to.
Yeah.
And you can tell with the frustration because Stephon Diggs, I said that he plays uninspired football. He doesn't have urgency. Right. And I think that he's tired of the way that Josh Allen plays the game because it's inconsistent. So when I'm looking at him, you can look at Stephon Diggs' numbers and you can say that he's going backwards, but I think he still can get open at a high rate. I just think that he plays uninspired with a lack of urgency.
Adam and I were talking during the podcast, the preview one, Adam, and I said, I don't have a number. I'm just going off naked eye, right? But it looks like 75% of the Bills' passing offense is a play in which Allen is doing something that probably wasn't the initial play, like you guys mentioned, jumping out, doing and that seems like no way to live, right? That doesn't seem like sustainable success to just have your quarterback kind of making it up as he goes along almost every play.
And Brian Daboll battled him. I mean, I know they had a great working relationship, but the two would go back and forth and would argue a lot because Daboll, as you guys are talking about, one of the things to be done a certain way, as all coordinators do, goes, here's what we're doing, do this. And he wouldn't always do it. Mm-hmm. And he's very instinctual. The way he was explaining to me is this. Once Allen thought he could do something, he would continue to do it, even if it wasn't what he was taught. Mm-hmm. And there's a danger. Yes, it's not what you want him to do, but he makes special plays. So Daboll, who's got a temper, would go after him, and Allen would bark back at him, and Allen would sort of sometimes do what he wanted. And there's only so much you can do. Now that Ken Dorsey was fired, you've got Joe Brady, who's a high energy, but not a sort of a rah-rah guy. He doesn't coach hard like Daboll does. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen needs some structure.
Right.
And that's what he's not gotten there, and it's hard.
It's a
gonna be
difficult
hard.
balancing act. I mean, believe me, I've had these conversations at the combine for years with coaches who've had quarterbacks that can make those kinds of plays. I remember talking to a Seahawks coach a number of years ago regarding Russell Wilson when he was in his prime. And it's a very difficult balancing act because you don't want to take the mentality away that creates plays that maybe only Josh Allen can make. I mean, he's 6'5", 240 pounds, and he probably has the strongest arm in the league, and he moves really, really well. So you don't want to take those away. So how do you not take those away, but on the other hand, get him to play within structure so you have a consistent intermediate passing game? Because they really do not have a consistent intermediate passing game right now.
It's funny, you mentioned how he's 6'5", 240, and how fast and how well he moves. It really does make him, from a physical standpoint, one of the most unique players to ever play the game. To be able to do that. Jason, you played with Donovan, you played with Cam Newton, who was also considered one of the more unique players at that size to move like that. I forget, in Kansas City, were you with Mahomes and Smith, or just?
No, just Alex.
Just Alex Smith. But so you played with guys who can
but Mahomes
move around.
is phenomenal. He's the best quarterback in the league. I think we'd all agree.
Sure.
But he's 6'2" and maybe 212.
Right.
215.
Right. Allen's a bigger guy. Having played with Newton and Donovan, can you understand how Josh Allen sees the game that way, and how difficult it is, as Greg mentioned, to get him to still be him, but the good parts of him, and then try to eliminate the bad parts of the game?
It's tough. It's going to be tough with any guy that has, like, I would say above average to special athletic ability.
Right.
It's always tougher to reel those guys in because they are the exception and they're able to get away with bad habits. And though you can tell them and show them on tape, hey, this is what normally happens, they can't relate to it because it never happens to them.
Right.
Because they're so special in certain scenarios. So it's like Greg said, it's a very, very hard balancing act. And most guys like that never get out of it.
Yep.
How do you feel about the Brett Favre comp that's been thrown around a lot?
Josh Allen is going to throw an interception. Mm-hmm. That's just listen. He's going.
Favre did too.
But Favre did too.
That's why I asked.
Right.
That.
So he's going to throw an interception. But Favre was not athletically gifted like Josh Allen. He's not, like he said, 6'5", 250 or whatever it is, and able to run a 4.40, 4.5, low 4.5 40. Mm-hmm. That's not Brett Favre, but he's a chance taker, and that's the reason they say it's like Brett Favre, because he will make a throw. I think you just have to live with it and try to mitigate it as best as possible.
The other thing I will say about the Bills, and, Allen's been an easy whipping boy, and we've just discussed him. And by the way, he's had a pretty great career up to this point.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it's not like he's a bad player. Mm-hmm. It's just he's a certain kind of player. Those are two different things. He's a really good player. But they also came back in 2 games this year and went ahead with less than 2 minutes to go, and the defense did not hold the lead. They'd have 2 more wins. They're 6-5 now, so they'd be 8-3, and no one would be having this conversation.
Right.
So again, that doesn't change the Josh Allen conversation, but it would change their record, and the perception nationally would be a whole lot different.
You know what else would change them is winners. And that's the thing. When they're good, when they were at their peak, you had Emmanuel Sanders, and he was older, but he's a winner. Mm-hmm. He's going to win a route. Stephon Diggs will win a route. When you have one guy that can win a one-on-one matchup, it's easy to key in on as a defense. When you need Gabe Davis and you need Shakur and you need these other guys to step up and be winners, when a guy doesn't see the field the way that you want him to, when you talk about Brian Dable or Dorsey or Brady, if he's not seeing the field the way that you want him to, what's the easiest way to remedy that? Throw the ball outside the numbers to a guy that can win.
Yeah.
So
and then, at this point in time, and again, because we're not there every day, it's hard to know what the connection is between Josh playing the way he does and other receivers. But one would have to say, just based on production, that beyond Diggs, they don't really have another wideout.
Right.
Now, again, we're not there, so we don't know how all that plays out. I don't know what you think of Gabe Davis's talent, Jay, but obviously he's not become, just based on the way their offense happens, he hasn't really become that guy. I think they're hoping Shakir can develop into a really good slot receiver. That remains to be seen. Kincaid is a guy that pretty much everybody loved coming out of Utah. I did as well, and I think they're hoping stylistically he becomes like a Travis Kelce. You know, Kelce will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Kincaid theoretically is that style tight end, but he's still a rookie. You know, so they're hoping for things, but they really don't have a number 2 wideout. So after Diggs, and I'd love your point of view, but I think Diggs is really good. But I think Diggs at his core is a high-level possession receiver. I don't think Diggs is a true vertical dimension. I personally wouldn't put Diggs in the Chase Jefferson category. I don't know your thoughts. I wouldn't, but I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, Chase and Jefferson probably at this stage run better than him. But Diggs is still a 4-4 guy. I just think that the way that they utilize him is not always in the best
And maybe
light.
that's, yeah.
Those guys are more vertical than Diggs.
Right.
His route patterns, like he's a side to side mover, but he definitely can make you move out of his spot, so he can get open. Yes, do they need an X that's dominant? Yeah, they definitely need.
Yeah, they don't have that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add with Kincaid, he's basically their slot receiver. That's by alignment, that's the way they use him, and he gets open. He's pretty athletic. In fact, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but man, he can move. But you guys are right. Gabe Davis has not been who they thought he was. He sort of flourished under Chad Hall, the receivers coach is now with the Jaguars, but they've not gotten him to play consistent football. And I know they've cross-trained Shakir to play inside or outside. Most teams saw him as an inside receiver, so maybe that's what he does.
Right.
But it makes him easier to defend. When you don't have that guy opposite Diggs who's dependable, it's a good thing for the defense.
Gee, Greg, you know, you mentioned that he put him ahead twice. The defense blew the game. It could be 8-3 if that didn't happen. I wonder why Sean just didn't fire the defensive coordinator. Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah, he's the one.
No, but I mean, you know, so, and by the way, you know, Dan Orlovsky did something on TV a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, when he basically went through all of Allen's interceptions. And if you just look at the number on a page, it seems like too many, but except for 4 or 5 of them, they really haven't been what people think they are.
Like just throwing it right to the other guy.
Yeah, he's not throwing a red zone interception this year, by the way.
That's big. They have a very good red zone offense.
Yeah,
so
they've not. It's not been quite as good as there have been times when their red zone offense has been great. And by the way, they still are really good on third down. They've been really good on third down under Josh Allen.
Right.
Yeah, they're second in third downs percentage, and they're third in the red zone touchdown percentage. So they're pretty
both.
both of them.
Yeah,
but there was a stretch a couple of years ago where it seemed like every time they got in the red zone, they scored a touchdown.
So what do you suspect the Eagles, both of you guys, will do today as far as, and based on what you see other teams, how they try to defend Josh Allen? Do you dedicate a spy on third down? You're cognizant he's going to try to run. What can you do? Because he makes some back-breaking plays.
You want me to go? Or you want to go?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that here's one issue that, you know, relates to Josh Allen, and you never know what's in a quarterback's head. I think they're going to have issues in protection. See, that's the problem. I don't think their right tackle, Spencer Brown, is very good in pass protection, and he's certainly going to struggle with the likes of Hassan Reddick.
Right.
You know, he can't handle those kinds of speed rushers. And Deion Dawkins, the Temple grad, you can line him up, but he's just okay. And I think that they're going to have issues in protection. I mean, look what happened last week with the Chiefs, okay? Their tackles aren't very good. And again, I don't know what was in Mahomes' head. You never know that when a guy's playing, but I don't think he trusted his protection, and I think he became overconscious of it. And they started to use Travis Kelce to chip. So that just tells you how important it was, because when Travis Kelce on critical downs is not a primary route runner, that tells you how problematic they feel their tackles are.
Right.
And I think the Bills are going to have the same issue.
Jason, do you think then there will not be as much resources dedicated to a spy, or do you think the Eagles just play their usual defense?
I don't. Here's the thing. I don't think that the Eagles are going to sit back and play Josh Allen and man-to-man. So that's what this comes down to. So if you're using a spy, most of the time that's because you want to play man behind it. I think that with this offense, I think that Josh Allen is a good quarterback, but I think you can confuse him. That's what the tape shows. It shows that he can be confused. And when you're talking about a guy that doesn't see it well all the time, coverage, and when guys are dropping dropping in depth, you don't necessarily need a spy because they're in coverage, right? So I think that you're going to play this team a little bit more more zone and play your defense as usual.
Gotcha.
It's funny you say that because, and you could be right, obviously you'd have to be in his head a little. I always get the feeling watching him, not that he's confused, but that he's just not a natural timing and rhythm player. So there's a lot of times where there's throws to be made, and I just think because he's not natural at it, that he ends up being a beat late with a lot of those. Even some completions, because his arm is obviously ridiculous. I mean, he was late on that throw to Shakir. last night.
Yeah.
He was,
But he has a hose. He can.
he was just sitting on his back foot, and he drilled that ball. I mean, he can do that.
It's funny because when it happened, I said to myself, I don't know how many quarterbacks in the NFL can make that throw. And then I said to myself, I don't know how many quarterbacks in the NFL think that that's a good throw to make.
Or even attempt it, right?
Or have even tried to attempt it.
Right.
But
well,
it just shows you
and
what
he can make those.
he's capable of. Yeah.
And honestly, I remember talking to the Bills when he was drafted. They knew he was a project.
Right.
Mechanics weren't good, low percentage.
Although he got better quicker than they thought.
He did.
Yeah.
But they said it started with his footwork. It was atrocious when they got him. And Dayball had to work and work and work, and he started buying in. But coaching matters. And we were talking about this earlier. At some point, not that they'd ever move away from him, he's too gifted. I think quarterbacks become who they are. He's just a special thrower that's got some issues. And I don't know if anyone can get it out of him to stop doing the things that he shouldn't do.
Right.
As Greg was talking about, and Jason, you've seen this before. If a quarterback's special, do you want to coach it out of him?
Right.
That's the issue you face.
It's a really tough thing, and unfortunately, sometimes coaches get fired over it.
And here's
As
the
one
thing.
just
That
did.
happened.
Yes.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you paid him. So there's only a matter of time before the team starts to decline, and he has to be more special.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe he feels like he has to be more special because he got paid, and because the team is starting to deteriorate around him.
And the other part of that is the team's view that, because I know this for a fact, and you probably know it too, is they start to think we're fine because we have Josh.
Well, that happens.
And while they've won a lot of games. I don't know what his record is as a starter, but it's really pretty good. So there's, in their mind, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
58-29.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And obviously they've been in the playoffs pretty much every year. We'll see what happens this year, but you start to think, oh, we're fine because we have Josh.
Right.
But he's not quite that kind of play,
Right.
But yet he could come out today and have one of those games where he's phenomenal. He could make special plays, and then you walk away going, "Oh my God, not many people can do that."
He can carry them sometimes, but then something happens with a bad decision.
Yeah.
Why did you make that throw? Because he thought he could.
Right.
That's
Right.
Ryan Dayball and Allen would.
Go ahead.
So it seems to me the messaging, Adam, right? When they're sixth in the league in points scored and top 2 in red zone, top 3 in third down, that when you fire your offensive coordinator, which they did in Ken Dorsey, and they promote Joe Brady to offensive coordinator from quarterbacks coach, that maybe the message is we're not going to change our quarterback, but maybe we're going to change something structurally within our offense that can help our quarterback. What's your understanding of that, why that move was made?
First of all, you can't change the scheme in the season. It's impossible. You can't.
You
do
can
that.
tweak. You can't change.
You can't change it. You have. Let's say if you have 500 plays. I'm just throwing a number. You might run a third of them, but you're going to find the plays you think he can make, and then you go from there. And that's all you could do. Now, they ran the ball a lot more. Well, they also got a lead early in the game.
Well, that's the other thing.
That's what I laughed at. People saying they're going to be a running team. No, they're not. Not with Josh Allen. They'll never be a running team. In fact, I could tell you from talking to the Bills at the end of last season, they made a decision that James Cook would be their starter.
Right.
Who's not a guy that probably will pile up a lot of carries. He's a passing down running back. If you're going to be in a spread offense, he's your quarterback like they have. But it's just Ken Dorsey got blamed for some of the issues. So is it Ken Dorsey's fault that James Cook fumbled on the first play of the game? No. But I think what happens, and I didn't talk to Sean about this, but I know the way it works, is that when you're not as good as you should be, and ownership will start asking why, you start making decisions. It's like Ron Rivera firing Jack Del Rio. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been fired, but you're not willing to take the blame, so you put it on somebody else. This goes on every year on every team in season.
And they're a team that expected to be in the Super Bowl running this year.
Sure, certainly in the playoffs. Yeah.
And that's. I mean, if they lose today, their playoff hopes are definitely a problem. If you look at their schedule,
100%. It's also Ken Dorsey's fault that I have to wear this hat all show. We'll move on. The Eagles have definitely had some notable struggles this year against certain passing games. They did come out of the bye week with some better health in getting Bradley Roby back, and they were able to shut down Kansas City's passing game. They held Patrick Mahomes to a season low 177 yards. Greg, I know you observed a few changes that were made on defense.
The
Eagles defense from Sean Desai as they played the Kansas City Chiefs. You talked about it with Clay Harbor on the show Inside the Tape. Let's talk about, because there were a couple, let's talk about the main one to me, which is the cornerback alignment.
Yeah.
What did you notice there?
I noticed, and then, it took me, you have to go through a number of plays, but they basically made Darius Slay their boundary corner and Bradbury their field corner. So instead of playing left and right, because Bradbury was the right corner and Slay was the left corner, which means they would both play field and boundary because they would just be on one side. They made, in that game last week, they made Slay the boundary corner and Bradbury the field corner. And you can address the reason you do that.
Well, the boundary corner can be left alone more often, right? And you can play coverage to the field because there's more bodies over there and your safety is going to be over there anyway. So you can kind of leave the whole side to the boundary corner and play coverage everywhere else. So that's why you would do that.
When you guys watched the tape, do you think it made a difference? Do you think it was a positive? Because they had 5 drops, but what visually did you think Jason was successful?
I thought that the game was muddied by the rain. I don't necessarily think it was too much of a difference. I think the Eagles would have been in a world of trouble if it was a clear day.
Well, it's going to rain today. It's going to rain all game. So
that's my. I thought that the game. Remember, on TV we can just say, "Hey, you should catch the ball," or "How'd you make that throw?" When it's not like high school. High school, you play with that football where the rain soaks in and it's so easy to catch. No, the leather that the NFL has, it turns it into a slip and slide. The ball, you have to be a guy that has elite hands in order to catch the ball consistently in the rain. And part of I stayed in the league because I can catch in the rain, right? So I've been sitting in a ball game where you have your favorite player out of the game because I could catch in the rain, right? So you need guys for those moments, and neither team, because the way the NFL is going, everyone wants the guy that has the yards at the catch and the guy that's a big play receiver. But if you have 4-7 hands in the rain, it's not good, and that's what you saw happen.
In the rain, did you wear gloves?
It depends on how hard it was raining. But there comes a point when it's raining really hard that you have to take off your gloves. And there's rules to the rain that you have to think about. And yards after the catch is not one of those rules.
Right.
Greg, to Adam's point, it feels like we might need a larger sample size to really see the impact of this switch between.
Well, the issue today will be whether Slay travels with Diggs. Now, that's one change they made. They used more motion last week, and Diggs was often the motion receiver. So, that's the thing. If Diggs ends up being the motion receiver, because I think, and Jay, I think you would probably agree, I think Diggs is more ideally suited to be a Z than an X.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, on this team, he might have to play X at times because they don't really have one. But I think he's more suited to be a Z, and the Z is the motion receiver because the X is on the ball, so he really can't go in motion.
Right.
So Diggs was used more in motion last week. You noticed that right away. And I think their motion percentage was 10 to 15 percentage points higher than it had been previous to last week.
And we've seen at times this season the Eagles have struggled a little bit against motion.
Well, they did a bunch of cross motion last week with Joe Brady in there, and then it goes against the Greg's observation, right? So usually the Z receiver is going to be to the field most of the time, not all the time, right? So Darius Slay's in the boundary, he can't shadow, right? And it goes against that principle, or we're just saying, okay, we're going to use it based on the matchup, which we don't know. We don't know if they found a new revelation and something that they want to play, or that was just team specific.
Right. So the other change we already alluded to is that in the slot, they would play on first and second down. Bradley Roby was back, and then Eli Ricks came in for third down.
And I wish I had a brilliant answer for that, but I don't.
No, really don't. I mean, I saw, someone posited to us that maybe it's because he's a bigger, more physical guy, and they wanted a little more.
But he's not a slot corner.
No,
that's what.
But Justin Watson is.
Well, he did play slot down the Saints.
But they probably
I'm saying
Justin Watson was going to play.
Ricks. Yeah.
So we think coming into the game, this is their decision. Maybe because MVS could line up on the slit. Where on the bomb he beat Roby. Was he lined up inside?
Yeah,
MVS?
they were yes, technically yes.
Okay,
and they were in a stack, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you fast forward to this matchup, okay, Gabe Davis.
But that was a blown coverage. That wasn't necessarily on Rob. That was they triple teamed Kelce. It was supposed to be a double team on that play.
Didn't get
and
the
then
ball.
Bayer, it worked. I thought that was Bayer's mistake, but that's just my.
So you're Joe Brady, right? You see this on tape. What are you, Jay, put your offensive coordinator hat. You're like, all right, they're rotating different guys here in the slot. How can we capitalize on that? What's our best matchup?
They have two very quick players in the slot, and Shakir, and what was the
Hardy?
The number 11.
Deontay Hardy?
Yeah. Hardy's super quick.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take advantage of it? Yeah, I think there's money to be made on our defense passing in general. I don't necessarily think that you have to come up scheme a great matchup in order to be successful.
Right. The big thing will be protection.
Yeah, their thing is trying to protect to give the guys time to get to the secondary.
All right, Justin, we'll see. So I like that you brought that up. I think that's someone our viewers might want to keep out. Deontay Hardy today, a guy with speed and probably drop a quick play on you.
He's a gadget guy, returner.
He doesn't play a ton of snaps.
He beat someone. Kincaid he beat the nickel so quickly on a seam ball, but Kincaid was wide open, so you knew he was going to get the ball. But
Gotcha. All right, I want to talk more about Sean Desai a little bit as we close over the first hour, just what we've seen from him. First, I want to remind everybody, winter is approaching. Our great Eagles fans had a great time here at Fringe, had a great meal. They had a great meal here at Fringe Bar, but we like to get our meals also from Hello Fresh because we don't always have time to go out. It's winter, it's getting dark, we got a lot of responsibilities. It seems like there's less time in the day. Hello Fresh is great because they deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. No more wasting time researching recipes, no more planning meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. Even an idiot like me could follow a recipe card, all right? Doesn't get more efficient than that.
Yes,
Plus,
even
me, right. HelloFresh saves us time and money. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and anybody in between who loves a variety. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use the code 50Eagles, all one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, back to Sean Desai. We are 10 games through Sean Desai's first stint as Eagles defensive coordinator. I think he's had some memorable moments if you kind of look back throughout I know he's had a couple of slip-ups that we've mentioned as well, but you held Tampa Bay to 11 points on Monday night. You shut out the Rams in the second half in Week 5. You held top-ranked Miami to just 17 points,
Actually,
well
10.
below.
Actually, 10.
10 points, right, 10 points, well below their season average. And then most recently, you go into Kansas City in Arrowhead Monday night, and you hold the defending Super Bowl champions to 17 points. MVP, Patrick Mahomes. So, Adam, it's a good time now to remind people of this process wasn't smooth in that, he was considered somewhat of a dark horse candidate to even get the job because there was a sentiment that in-house candidate Denard Wilson was going to be the guy, and then when it wasn't him, he wound up leaving the team.
Yeah, in fact, Wilson was the in-house candidate and favorite, and then Desai kind of came in. He was on their list, but Denard Wilson, when we were checking into it, looked like he was probably going to have it, and then Sirianni and Wilson could not agree on certain things, and Wilson was not happy. and they just parted ways mutually. They went their separate ways.
He's in Baltimore now, right?
Yeah, and they hired him.
And by the way, their secondary, without a lot of big names, is playing really
phenomenal.
well.
Within 24 hours, he got a job being their DB's coach. And as you know, Jeff, they've redone their secondary coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald got moved up. They hired and moved around some guys, and it's working out. But one of the things I love about Desai is, right? So you see the first half, right? Mm-hmm. Looks bad. Getting gashed against the run. This looks bad. Whatever adjustments they made, they shut the Chiefs out in the second half. We could say all we want about the Chiefs receiver corps is not that good. We saw the changes and schematic little tweaks against the Dolphins. Phenomenal job.
Sure.
Hold them to 10 points, the best passing game by far in the National Football League. This guy this is his second go-around. He was a one-year defensive coordinator for the Bears. He's super smart, as John T. Filippo told us and Chuck Pagano told us when we spoke to Chuck. And you see it. His ability to adjust on the fly. We're not sure about Matt Patricia's inclusion. I know he's on their staff. He's helping both sides of the football as we understand it. But you got to give this guy some props. He's done a phenomenal job. He's got the oldest secondary in football. Mm-hmm. Oldest. And it shows every week. You guys see the tape. You tell us.
Yeah.
What's the defining characteristic so far, Greg, of Sean Desai defense?
I mean, I would say based on the opponents they've played, his willingness to be opponent-specific, which I think is not a trait that a lot of particularly young coaches have, because they grow up, working with other coaches, and they sort of say, they coach what they know. But I think his willingness to play the specific opponent really shows up. I don't think you say this is what they're going to do every single week, no matter what. I mean, obviously there's going to be staples, but I think his willingness to play the opponent probably stands out more than anything.
Sure.
But it's interesting how games work out, and this takes nothing away from Desai whatsoever. But it's funny just listening to Adam. Obviously Kelce fumbles in the red zone. Valdez-Scantling drops, which should have been an easy touchdown.
Sure. Yep.
Would the conversation be totally different if those things?
You can go back to week 2 with Justin Jefferson somehow fumbling a ball out of the.
So again, which takes away. I think overall he's done a really, really good job.
Sure.
Particularly since they have issues at corner, which we've talked about all year long.
Right.
And you've got, I remember talking to a DC before the season started, and he said to me, corner is the most important position on defense because you can scheme pressure, but you can't hide bad corner play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll say this in regards to Sean Desai. Like you said, he's opponent specific. In this past game, I thought he made an excellent adjustment by going 5 defensive linemen on first and second down when he could. In the second half, that was an adjustment. But also his willingness to leave corners on islands. We haven't saw that most of the year. They were in one-on-one situations, and I think he did it because he realized that the Chiefs receivers were struggling to catch in the rain, and how bad can you really be? How bad can you hurt us when it's raining like this? And that was an adjustment. That was in order to get some stops, in order to come up with some pressure, in order to rattle Mahomes a little bit. It had to do with taking more chances. And I thought that he did his job by taking a little bit more chances in the second half of that game and play to the elements. So that's a sign of a defensive coordinator. And yeah, we can say MVS should have caught the ball. And they gave him credit for 5 drops. Yeah. NFL team, they had about 10 drops. Like what we count as drops, not what the media says drop, because there's parameters to that. Right. But as far as an NFL player, the coaches are saying, dude, you dropped 10 passes in that game. I went back and counted, 10 passes. And let me get this last thing in. I have to agree with Greg on this point. It wasn't happenstance that Kelce dropped the ball. That was a veteran player. Right. We have him corralled. Right. It was 3 guys there. Yep. And I'm going to be aggressive toward the ball because I know he can't go anywhere. That was a great decision by him. So that was forced. That wasn't given.
Gotcha.
So I was going to say this, Jason. When you would go in the next day to have your tape graded, would Coach Cully say, "Hey, that's a drop. I know that."
Yeah.
Maybe someone else didn't think so, but they would grade it a different way.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because remember, the media and the way that they call the game, the people that are counting stats, they call it a different way, right? So if it's an off-target throw, they won't call it a drop. So meaning if it's like below a certain part of your shin, that's too low for you to catch. If it's outside of the framework of your body, they may give you a little leeway. We count it if you get two hands on the ball or it's in your body frame, you should be able to catch it. And there are so many balls that the Kansas City Chiefs receivers, like a few of them guys were just scared. Like, you're going to get hit anyway.
Hey, remember what Sean Desai said on his introductory press conference to that point? He said, I want my defense to be felt. I want it to be palpable.
Right.
And you can say when the Eagles play defense, I mean, they hit you hard. They are not afraid. I think that's a big testament to
It's a big one. And I will say this. We laud Patrick Mahomes, but he too in this past game had a bunch of misreads. A bunch of them. And I don't know if you saw them on tape. There were times where guys were wide open, and he should have been on that side on the field based on the coverage. I get one. They ran Arizona, which is 3 slants on the left side, and you run a go route and an out route on the backside. And he definitely should have been on that backside because of the coverage. And he threw, in between 2 defenders to Watson, Justin Watson on the inside slant, and he basically looked at the ball and said, "I want no parts of this." Right? So
I agree.
Yeah.
I heard about it all week on social media because I said that Mahomes did not play particularly well, which he did not. And of course, you're not allowed to say that apparently.
came for you. Yeah. The masses came for you. All right, good stuff there on Sean Desai. And whenever Jason speaks, because Jason gave Gannon, man, the business as he deserved. You and Quentin were on him, and so far, through about a little more than half the season, seems like the reviews on Desai are positive.
I don't see it as a Desai problem. I think we have a personnel problem. I don't necessarily think it's a Desai problem.
Sure. No, in fact, you might be getting more out of less this year with
exactly.
It's interesting. Their man coverage numbers are up this year, but yet they're older this year. This is the oldest secondary in football by far. If you count Roby as a nickel, 4 out of the 5 starters are 30 years or older. But yet, we talk about massing limitations. You can't. Right. These are the guys you have. The 2 corners are making a lot of money, and they're locked into the contracts next year, do the guaranteed money. This is what they have, folks, not only this year, but for next season.
All right, we are wrapping up the Eagles defense there. We're going to pause for a minute to hear from a couple of our friends, including our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Tell me what must I do? 'Cause I can live good and breathing. I wouldn't bug him and he won't stop cheesing.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Birds pregame live here at Fringe Bar and Grill, 140 North Columbus Ave on the Delaware waterfront. And it's a little gray out there, but we are having a fun time in here. We got the Eagles fans in their Kelly Greens. They are rocking it, and they're going to watch this game on that 50-foot screen TV here, 250-seat theater-style stadium. It is an amazing place to watch the game. The Eagles are 3-point home favorites today, which Adam Caplan was not a fan of. He is not agreeing with Vegas on that. He thought that was low.
My number would have been 6. Again, what are they basing on? The Eagles have lost 2 home games the last 2 seasons. The Bills are, 2-4 on the road? Why wouldn't the Eagles, who are clearly the better team, Greg talked about at the beginning how much better, at least from a talent standpoint, I don't get it. I would have had the Eagles as a 6-point favorite. Now, someone's going to be right about that. Someone's going to be wrong.
I was going to say, I learned a long time ago not to argue with our friends out west in the desert.
They're very good.
Boosted odds and hitting those Turkey Day parlays. Let's talk about the beauty of MyBookie, right? It's not about watching games. It's about turning every second into a potential win. With MyBookie, you can stream the games and live bet them, and you can turn any game day into a payday. Are you ready to up your game? Sign up today and make your first deposit with the promo code THEBIRDS. That's just one word, THEBIRDS, for a sweet deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code THEBIRDS, all one word, to claim your bonus. It's not just a promo code, it's a secret weapon to get the extra edge on the house, because the best part is you don't even need to be a sports whiz to win at MyBookie. You can cash in on everything from politics to your favorite shows and then some. You can bet anything, anytime, and anywhere, only with MyBookie. All right, as we are here in hour 2, we like to go around the league a little bit, look at some hot button issues, things that Adam Caplan can give us some intel on. Of course, this segment is sponsored by Garage Beer. It's light beer like it used to be.
Beer.
That's right, light beer like it used to be. Find yours at drinkgaragebeer.com. So, Adam, we've talked about the fans being critical of Eagles offense coordinator Brian Johnson this year. I'm curious around the league what the perception of Brian Johnson is. And will he be a candidate this offseason if he will continue to win?
He will. He's on lists. We put this out last spring. The Panthers are going to pair him up with Ben Johnson. Mm-hmm. Ben Johnson had become the head coach, not Frank Reich, but Ben Johnson decided he wanted to interview this year. Wanted to take one more year to spend with his family. Very highly respected guy, Brian Johnson. First year calling the plays, because when the guy before him did such a brilliant job, it's hard in comparison to live up to that. Mm-hmm. The guys could give their opinion, obviously, on Brian Johnson, but Ben Johnson, Brian Johnson, here are the other names. Dan Quinn, who's been a finalist a couple times lately. He's phenomenal. Lou Anarumo, who was a finalist for the Cardinals job that went to Jonathan Gannon. Raheem Morris, who absolutely deserves to be a head coach again, was 33 when he was a head coach. He was too young. He was too close to the players. He's learned his lessons. He's well into his 40s now. He's a Super Bowl winner twice now, 2 different teams. Gerard Mayo, who interviewed very well for the job that went to Sirianni. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Eagles made the right choice, but Gerard Mayo interviewed very well. Steve Wilkes, who knew the Panthers felt was probably the runner-up to Frank Reich. Steve rallied the team. They were in it for the playoffs until very late. Aaron Glenn should probably get a look. But overall, that's probably the initial list from talking to people around the league. Mm-hmm. It's a good list. Lots of good defensive candidates, offensive candidates. But the thing is with these defensive guys, they've got to get, if it's not a veteran quarterback that they're going to be using or coaching, and it's going to be a young quarterback, you better have a quarterback developer on your coaching staff. If not, you're not going to get that job.
All right.
Steve Wilkes was on the hot seat a couple weeks ago.
Not by them.
For defensive coordinator.
No. What happened was because there was
I'm just saying they're blaming them for everything.
Are you listening to Twitter again? Are you on Twitter again, Jay? Or X, whatever it's called? Well, Jay, I do want to ask you, the Lions, Adam mentioned Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, both potential head coaching candidates. They lost pretty badly on Thanksgiving. They got killed by the Ravens a couple of weeks ago. They're still a very good team, but also mentioned was Steve Wilkes from the Niners and Dan Quinn from the Cowboys. Both of those teams won very big on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So as you look at the NFC landscape right now, I'm curious who you think poses the biggest threat to the Eagles. Is it the 49ers? Is it the Cowboys or is there somebody else?
No, it's going to be in this order to me. It's going to be the Niners because of their pass rush and getting Chase Young. I think that's a very, very underrated move.
I agree.
And then I think it's the Cowboys. I just think that'd be very tough for a team like the Lions that don't know the pressure of a playoff game and down the stretch and winning. They're learning. It's all new for them. It takes a couple years to get there. Just think about the Eagles. The Eagles, and how they've progressed over the years. That's how it happens for most teams. You get close one year, you stub your toe, you get a little bit further next year, and then you win it. That's how it normally goes. That's the progression throughout the history of football. So I think that the Lions will be a good team. I just don't think that they're serious for the playoffs. But the Cowboys and the Niners, they're real.
Yeah.
They're real good teams, and I think that it'll be an uphill battle for the Eagles to win those games.
Sure. Greg, have you checked out yet or rechecked the film on the Lions Thanksgiving game? And
Yeah, I watched it. I mean, I watched their defense versus Jordan. Because I've been watching Jordan Love every week.
Sure. And the Lions got blown out by the Ravens about.
Oh, yeah.
4.
Yeah.
So when you watch the Lions, we're obviously a good team. Where is there a flaw that jumps out?
On the defensive side?
Anything on the
I would say on the defensive side, their secondary has started to become a little bit of an issue, their corner position. I think it was solid throughout the course of the early part of the season. I thought Aaron Glenn did a great job of self-scouting because last year they played a ton of man coverage and they blitzed a lot and he got burned.
Yes.
And this year he's backed off and played more zone and not blitzed as much. But in recent weeks, for whatever reason, only he can tell you, I can't, he's played a little more man. Not as much as a year ago, but the two corners, Jacobs and Sutton, have struggled quite a bit the last number of weeks. And as I said a little bit ago, it's hard to mask bad corner play. It's just hard, So they've really struggled. I thought that showed up on Thanksgiving as well, but it's shown up in other games. So they're struggling a little bit the corner position.
I would also say their pass rush is not very good. Other than Hutchinson,
Yeah.
they're just not. Doesn't even play anymore because he didn't do well. Charles Harris doesn't even dress.
After that next
he
year,
dressed
had
this
2
week.
years
No,
ago.
but he barely plays.
Yeah.
His snap counts are way down.
Way down.
And they were counting on it to be a help for Hutchinson.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened.
Yeah.
They're just not getting to. They're not getting there. And as Greg said, when your quarterback plays bad and you can't get to the quarterback, you're in trouble.
Yeah, so that's been an issue for them.
And Aaron Glenn's one of the most aggressive coordinators. So
Yeah.
in order for him to be himself, you need somebody that can play man.
Yep.
So you can deviate from who you are, but eventually you want to get back to what you do.
Yeah. That's what he'd like to do.
That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Sure. Speaking of getting back to what you want to do, the Eagles, when they want to, like to be a very good passing team. However, Jason Avant, reports from Eagles beat writers right now arriving at the link is that the rain is starting to fall a little bit right here. I can't really tell behind me, but we knew it was in the forecast.
Drizzling is not bad.
Okay.
Consistent rain. You have to play and that's what the Eagles did last week. They protected the ball, and you have to play the long game with the rain. And the Chiefs figured out that somehow we're going to pass the ball 43 times in the rain, and it didn't work for them. And I believe Jalen had 22 attempts.
23, I believe.
Yeah, 23 attempts.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. It's more control. It's running. That's what you have to do. So whoever's watching the game, if the rain comes down pretty hard, make sure you get your DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts running
I'm just
numbers
going to
up.
ask you,
Well,
Jason.
I was going to say the other
Both
thing.
you guys on Swift. I'd like to get to him in a minute.
The other thing I was going to say was, I went back and I looked at the Super Bowl, and in the first half alone, Jalen Hurts had 10 design runs for 52 yards against the Chiefs. And if you noticed in the second half this past week, they went to much more of the design run game because they obviously felt that could work against the Chiefs because it did in the Super Bowl, and it's the same coordinator.
Right.
Guys, has Swift surprised you? I mean, his numbers would show he's had a good year. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Swift so far?
I think he runs hard. He's not a tremendously big guy. And I don't know if we've used him to his maximum ability yet, because I think that he's dynamic in the passing game, and we haven't found a way to spotlight that. But I'm thinking that he's running the ball extremely hard. Sometimes I get nervous that he's going to put it on the ground. I don't know if anybody else has that sense. He's done a great job, but other than that, I think that he's running the ball pretty hard for his use.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, from a pass game standpoint, I'd like to see him, as John D. Filippo told us recently, Line him up in the slot, move him like we saw in training camp, because he was incredibly dynamic, where I was like, wow, we might be seeing this. Yeah, he's caught the ball, but vertically, we haven't quite seen that. That would be the one thing we haven't seen.
We have an embarrassment of riches on guys that need to touch the ball.
I got it.
All right, so getting back to the rain, because the reports are that the rain is supposed to pick up as the afternoon goes on. I don't think it's going to be a crazy downpour, but it is supposed to get steadier. You mentioned earlier in the show, and even in the podcast with Quentin Michael, Q&A pod on Inside the Birds, that the concept of having rain hands, meaning being able to adjust and have those type of hands that you say is sort of a fleeting concept in the NFL. So I want you to sort of describe in your mind why some receivers you think are better at adjusting to the rain than others, and what quality is it? A mental is it a concentration? What do you see in having rain hands?
It's definitely a mental thing, because when you get out there and you go and try to catch the ball like you normally would in perfect weather, the ball goes right through. Mm-hmm. So there's, like I said, like normally when you're catching the ball, your hands are going to be separated a little bit, then they come to close as the ball gets closer. Mm-hmm. When you play in the rain, you start with your hands closed, right? And you tighten your hands up, and you make sure that the space in between your hand is minimal, because you know the ball is going to slide through, right? And another thing too, you don't worry about yards at the catch. You're a possession receiver in the rain. Everybody is a possession receiver in the rain, right? So, and if you have that concept of making, yards at the catch, you're going to struggle catching the rain. And then, so it's a mental thing. A lot of guys lose the battle beforehand. Sometimes you have to body the ball, and bodying is not saying that you're catching the ball with your body. You're catching the ball with your hands closer to your body. So some guys, I thought Devontae Smith did it perfectly. In a normal situation, you try to stay up and catch a touchdown. On the deep pass that he caught, in the rain, you just secure the catch. We go down to one, Jalen Hurts push in the end zone.
So I talked to people who were at the game. They said it did rain pretty much the entire game, but it was never a driving, awful rainstorm. It just would not stop raining.
Yeah.
So do you wear goggles? Like from a visionary standpoint, when it's really pouring,
no,
you just deal with it coming right at you?
Dudes that wear visors for reasons of being cool, that's like 90% of visor wearers. 90% of visor wearers are doing it for being cool. They take them off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's because you're gonna get the whole fog, all that stuff that goes on with it, right? So you take your visor off, but guys that don't wear visors, you shouldn't have any vision problems.
We're anti-fog.
Yeah.
Shield.
Jay, I thought I remember in your career, your former teammate Jeremy Maclin, early in his career, I thought he would struggle in cold weather games because of a hand. It seemed like his hands got better as his career went on. Then he wound up having a very good year in Kansas City. Is that something you remember from Jeremy early on? Because in Missouri, he was so explosive, but I remember him having drops earlier in his career.
I think it's all about the way that you approach and the guys that you have around you, right? I remember. Yeah, there's an adjustment. There's a mental adjustment that you have to take. You got to know when you're playing in 10, 15 degrees that the ball is going to be a brick and it's going to hurt when you catch it. You have to know that. And if you sit there and for lack of a better term, bitch about it, you're not going to be effective in doing it. Yeah. And you have to outlast the guy across from you on the other side of the field that's going to the heater every time. Right. I'm looking at the sideline, seeing who runs off the field and goes to the heated bench, because that person is not going to be mentally into the game. So if you're a guy that wants the amenities of playing in the NFL and wants it when it's nice, you're not going to win these critical games when it's cold outside. Right. I purposely stay away from the heaters because I don't want to get used to it. I like to sit on the cooler away from the heat so I can be cold the whole time and know that my life is miserable and I know that what I'm doing.
Come on, guys are cold though, right?
Yeah, you're going to get cold. Yeah. But the truth is that that's going to be the game that you're playing. Right. There's no relief coming.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Deal with it tomorrow.
Not everybody can be Freddie Mitchell. Just thank you for my hands for being so great.
There's guys like what Marty Morningwood would always say. This offense coordinator for me for so many years. Steve Young and Brett Favre, a bunch of guys he's coached over the years. Marty would say, look, eyes and fingers catching the ball. Rain, you bring them closer, tighten your forearms. He's like, and then there are some dudes that just catch the ball better than you. They're like, that is. Like, some dudes have, great hands and some dudes don't.
Right.
And that's it. And rain will expose you.
Who had the best hands of your time playing for the Eagles?
Besides you, of course.
Yes.
Besides me, Brent Selleck had pretty good hands.
I knew he was going to say Brent. I had a feeling you were going to say
Brent had really good hands.
Deshaun had great deep tracking hands, correct?
Deshaun had super small hands. He probably caught the ball better than any small-handed receiver that I've ever known.
Sure.
Like, my hands are, like, my gloves is like a 3X. That's usually going to be like the biggest. Deshaun was like a small, and he can catch the ball. But the best hands I've ever seen, and there's no debate in history of football, from a guy that watches a lot of pass catchers, it's Larry Fitzgerald. There's no debate for that for me ever. Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people are arguing.
Chris Carter had excellent hands.
Yeah.
But when you look at Larry Fitzgerald's catching percentage,
I know
how much he was targeted and the types of plays that he caught.
And how easily he caught it. It looked like it was effortless.
His catching percentage is somewhere like 98%.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It's crazy.
First ballot Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, we got some scores in. Bullcraft Max, had to make sure I said that one correctly, says 25-20 Eagles, and over 4 decades an Eagles fan says 24-20. I'm assuming he said Eagles, but because he didn't put the team, but because he's been an Eagles fan for 4 decades,
I would
be
think
one of those
so.
cynical guys that thinks the Bills are going to come out. I don't know. A lot of the older Eagles fans, they never think the Eagles are going to win. They're always waiting for the Eagles to lose or the shoe to drop. Let's talk about Devontae Smith, because he made that really nice 41-yard catch, I believe it was, that set up the go-ahead touchdown in the rain, made a nice adjustment on the ball. Greg, when you look at that play that set up such a key touchdown, explain how that play unfolded and what you saw.
Well, that was an interesting play because I thought Hurts did a really good job too.
Yeah.
Because they lined up on that play. If you recall, initially they had Willie Gay was lined up over Smith. It was a 2-by-2 set. Smith was the slot to the boundary. He's almost always the slot to the boundary when he's the slot. And there's reasons why he's a slot to the boundary, particularly in empty, but that's a different question. This play, it was 2-by-2. And then the protection was sliding that way anyway, so the protection was not a concern. And lined up over Gay, capping him, was a safety, Mike Edwards. So Jalen kind of knew that Gay was not going to be part of the coverage.
Right.
And so you ended up with Smith running a slot fade on Mike Edwards. And you're going to take that matchup anytime.
Sure. What was Kansas City's intent, to try to get Gay as a pressure guy? But
Gay ended up blitzing, but the protection was sliding that way, and Lane Johnson ended up blocking Gay.
Right.
Yeah, that play was important because, and this is like the history of football, and I'm going my nerd mode. but about 2013, that play became big. 2013-14, and basically that concept is the old smash concept. So what they would do is the outside receiver would run a hitch, the inside receiver historically would run a corner out, but teams would press it and it would take the corner too long.
Right.
So what they did, instead of running a corner route, they started running this inside fade route.
Yes.
So I knew right away, I'm like, if they catch Mike Edwards in this, it'll be key. Younger players, because it's drawn up as like this circular route, and when you look at it on the play call, it goes like this line outside. But when it's off man, you still have to attack the man and then run tight around him. So Devontae Smith did that perfectly. He ran up the field. He didn't run the line that was on the play, stepped on his toes, and then went to the pylon. So it was a great call, great play, great design.
Yeah, and amazingly, I believe he finished with 99 yards. It's
Twice.
Second time in this year, and second time I think in 3 games that Devontae Smith has finished with 99.
Strange.
You know he knows that, right, Jay? Like he's thinking
he definitely
after
knows.
each game, like, I couldn't get one.
He had a sound bite the first time. It's like, dude, I got 99 yards. I'm mad.
But just getting back to Smith in the boundary slot, one reason they do that out of empty, and the Eagles have been a good empty team the last couple of years, is normally an empty, if it's 3 receivers to one side and then 2 to the other, and he's to the 2 receiver side in the slot, normally defenses will see the 3 receiver side as the passing strength. So the slot corner plays to the 3 receiver side, so a slot corner is not playing over Devonta Smith when he's the boundary slot in empty. So, you get matchup.
Yeah, you get a great matchup.
You get a better matchup.
Absolutely. Interestingly, we were talking about Smith. He's on pace for 82 catches, 1,074 yards, which is good, but that's obviously not as good as last year's 95 catch and near 1,200 yard season. But they're still pretty good and still plenty of football left to play here. Smith could very well get over 100 yards today. We could see A.J. Brown get back to his streak. He had 1 catch for 7. That's almost impossible to think.
L'Jarius Sneed did a good job.
What's that?
L'Jarius Sneed did a good job. He did a good job.
It's hard to imagine the Eagles winning a game where A.J. Brown only has, especially this year, 1 catch for 7 yards.
Well, the Eagles' offense overall was not particularly good in that game. Again, there could be all kinds of reasons. They weren't very good on 3rd down.
Right.
It wasn't a really good Eagles offensive performance overall.
I just thought they were trying to protect make less mistakes.
And you could be right.
And they did. They made fewer mistakes than the Raiders. They caught the Chiefs. They caught their passes. If history holds true, like we discussed, I mean, the rain may not be that bad. When the Eagles see a team like the Bills that are very beat up in the secondary, they tend to come out throwing. They can come out in a lot of 11 personnel, maybe some 10. Adam, I mean, this sort of sets up for them to do that today, the way the Bills are really hurting in the secondary.
Depends how impactful the rain is. If it's a steady rain, as Jason was talking about, you just can't do it. The Eagles played to the rain. They did run the ball more than they typically would. But as we've seen with these coaches, when they start trying to run the ball early, if it doesn't work, they're done with it. They're done with it. Now, we've seen the Minnesota game because of the way Brian Flores played his front, played an interesting front. They took advantage of it. We saw against the Packers where they set a team record for over 300 yards, like that. But typically they don't do that. Now, let's move this forward to today's game. You see all these guys out. You guys outlined the corners and safeties who are hurt, guys who won't be available. Quez Watkins may play. He should play. Why would you activate him? Why would he not play today? Unless it's a major numbers issue.
Are they going to activate 6 today?
6 wide receivers?
Well, again, Covey's only special teams, but okay. But why activate him today? They're not playing.
So we may see that personnel. 10,
So could you go with 10? I mean, it's not really what they do, but they did. But to me, if the rain holds up, if it's not too bad, knowing the way you asked this question, the way these coaches think, Sirianni, based on what we heard when he came in here, he wanted a throwing offense, which is one of the things the Eagles love. From a management standpoint, they want to throw the football.
Yes.
And you have passing personnel. Now, one little caveat, though. As we learned this morning, with Lane Johnson being questionable, if he can't play in the way Jack Driscoll struggled, if that happens, will they coach to the limitations of Driscoll? You got to take a look at that.
Good question. Jason, I know that even when the Eagles do come out passing, you tend to get a little concerned that they forget about their identity. So do you have a concern that in a game like today, they're going to kind of come out, throw the ball around, and you guys talked about DeAndre Swift, that it might be another underutilization type day?
Yeah, remember, I just think that the team is better when they're more balanced. That's just me. I'm a firm believer in that. Can they forget? Yes. They can they? Yes. They have done it multiple times, but they'll figure out a way to win the game. I think that Devontae Smith, his numbers may be down. Targets sure is down as well. So, can they forget their identity? I think they want their identity to be the greatest show on turf.
Yeah, they want to come out and put points on the board early.
That's what I think they want their identity.
Challenge those guys.
I think you could argue that their identity is their offensive line, and whatever the game dictates in their mind, is the way they want to play that game. I think I could be dead wrong because I'm not in the meetings, which is why, I'm one of those people, and people ask me this all the time. I had this conversation with somebody at Films, when we did our shoot this week, actually on a Wednesday. One of the guys who works on the shoot, he says, man, the play calling, and I'm like, hey, I don't discuss play calling. You know why? Because I'm not there during the week as they put it all together. And it's easy to look at a play, that doesn't work. Let's say it's 3rd and 5 and they decide on a quarterback draw and it gains 3. And people think, what are they calling? I'm not there during the week. I'm not sitting in all those meetings.
Fans are about results. They're
I'm not sitting in those meetings. And I'm a process guy. I love the process of doing all this, as you guys probably know. So since I'm not involved in that process, I don't comment on individual plays.
Honestly,
I've never known an offensive lineman in the history of playing football that didn't want to run the football more.
Of course, right.
I've never heard offensive linemen like, man, let's go to past 67
They like to be proactive in their movement rather than reactive. You know how hard it is? Just think about this. I don't know if many people think about this. You do. You played. Think about how hard it is to step back on almost every snap and have a guy who's a better, more explosive athlete attacking you. That's basically what pass protection is.
50 to 60 times
you're
a game.
actually getting out of an awkward stance.
Right.
It's the scouting term.
Right.
That's how you evaluate how they look.
No one, when they're 4 years old, says, "Hey, Dad, I want to get in a 3-point stance."
Really?
Yeah. Right. I mean, no one says.
No one wakes up and says, "Give me the Larry Fine."
Yeah. I mean, that's an
Jason Kelce's changing it, though. He's changing the narrative, right?
How
We're going to have more linemen, people dreaming about being linemen.
That play that Jason's talking about, right? You showed on the matchup show where Kelce got out and he's looking for work. You guys had a play on the matchup show. You were showing.
This week?
Yeah, you showed a play.
Was it the left side?
The left side.
So one of the film shows I was watching, I was showing.
Yeah.
But Jason Kelce, is he the best center you've seen? Over all teams. You saw Moai.
You mean over in my whole career?
Yeah.
No,
One of the best. One of the best.
I would say there's 2 guys that, and again, I didn't know you were going to ask me this.
Go ahead,
2 guys
sure.
just popped into my head
That's
that
why I
were
asked.
similar, and they're both in the Hall of Fame, and that's Tremonti Dawson and Kevin Moai. In terms of movement ability outside the framework, outside the box, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. So those 2 guys stand out to me, and they're both Hall of Famers.
Nice. I thought you were going to go out with, bring Mike Webster up.
No.
I'm just kidding, I'm
And to
kidding.
me, Kelce's a Hall of Famer. I don't think that's a question.
Guys, what makes him so special, Jason?
His ability to move and how smart he is. That's the thing. There's, you know what it is? It's like you running a business and your second in line is just as smart as you, so you can go on vacation and do whatever you want to do, because the guy that's there is just as good as you. And that's what it's like being the offensive line coach for Jeff Stoutland. It is. Kelce literally comes up with the protections. They yell at each other about which way they're going to pick it up. That's all Jason Kelce. So he's super smart. He loves the game. He's super athletic when it comes to getting out. And he likes contact. Talking about 2 dudes that used to getting fist fights as kids, how hard you can hit each other in the face. That's how they grew up. Right? Yeah. Like Jason Kelce throwing punches to Travis Kelce's face and vice versa. They love contact, and I just think that he's smart, loves contact, and he can run.
One of the players, Jeff, told us that we ran into over the last couple of years and it was no shot at Hurts. He goes, "You have no idea how many plays Jason gets
them out of or into,
of a bad play, because Jalen was quite not ready in 21. Obviously wasn't 22 where he broke out. And Kelce is so good at pointing out things pre-snap, pretty important."
That's history too. It's not happenstance. So let me give an example. So Jamal Jackson did the same thing for Michael Vick. And Kelce and a few other people, because that was the Howard Mudd. Howard Mudd was Kelce was a rookie, and Kelce was wanted. Howard Mudd wanted Michael Vick to be that person, to be Peyton Manning, and Kelce saw how there was a quick decline in Michael Vick's career, right? Because Jamal Jackson did it all for him at the beginning. So now Kelce can be that guy now that's smart enough to kind of shepherd Jalen Hurts into the right direction.
Right. He wanted to be the Jeff Saturday for Howard Mudd, the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Who calls the protections?
It is Jason Kelce.
Right? It's a combination.
Okay.
It's a combination. They do it both, but it's a check with me. When I was there with the team, it was more so on Kelce to get it done. But now, based on what I'm seeing on film, Jalen is calling out the mic and checking with Kelce.
Is that after, like, does Kelce make the call and then he sees something and he changes, like, flips?
Yes.
Okay.
So Jalen, but the center is always going to call out the point, right? He'll always call out, but I definitely see Jalen Hurts overriding Kelce a bunch. I do see that.
Yeah, well, the man's watching as much tape too, and he's studying, and he's starting to get a sense of where they're trying to attack him. So I would think that's a great symbiotic relationship that most really good quarterback center exchanges have, or combinations have.
They spend an ungodly amount of time with one another.
Like
that's it for you to know.
That's the key.
No, not like McNabb and other people. It's not the same.
I said like me and Adam.
Oh, me and Adam. Okay, yeah. No, they spend a lot of time with one another. Jason Kelce and Jalen Hurts, and one of the people that put a stamp on Jalen Hurts and this is kind of insider information, but I don't think it's too hard to share.
Sure.
One of the guys that kind of put his approval out there was Jason Kelce for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's paid off so far. So, Greg, let's get back to what you said. If the Eagles feel like you do, that, the Bills are second in sacks, but they can be, they're not like, you're not keeping you up at night. You're going to put your faith in the offensive line and say, I think we can throw against this team then.
Yeah.
Especially the Bills play, 74% zone, I think it is?
Yeah, they're a heavy zone team.
Right.
And I doubt they're going to match up a whole lot man-to-man today.
Right.
Just because I don't think they can.
Sure.
I mean, Jay's 100% right. Rasul Douglas is a nice corner, but he's an off-coverage zone corner who's a cluer and a keyer. He's not a man-to-man corner.
What are your thoughts on Bedford?
Bedford's done well for them. He's a small college guy. He's from Villanova, and he's certainly done well, but he's a beatable corner.
Right.
It's not as if you can't attack him. So, I mean, again, the weather is obviously a key factor, but let's say it's not a big problem. And we're not saying they're going to throw that Jalen Hurts is going to have 50 dropbacks. That's not the point. But if the weather's not a factor, they're not going to not play the game not to throw it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Outside, because they still have two good safeties.
Really
they're
good
not
safeties.
playing the way that they have in yesteryear because they don't have the corners that they had with Tre'Davious White.
Right.
But they're really good ball hawking safeties. Both those guys can make plays in the passing game. So Jalen has to be aware of where, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who was once an Eagle here, where they are.
7th round pick as a corner.
That's right. And they moved him, remember Joe Banner telling us that they moved him to safety in 2014 maybe, 2015.
He's been those guys have been in the league a long time.
People are also surprised when I tell them that Raheem Mostert was with the Eagles before he was
2015.
Yeah.
Jason, are there any type of throws in rain? Are there anything, because it's hard to throw deep in the rain, or any
it depends on how bad. I'm looking out. I keep looking up and out. I don't think that it's bad now.
It's not supposed to be very windy.
But again, if
it is or isn't.
So here's
No.
Here's my philosophy with inclement weather.
Okay.
This is just my philosophy. You run the football, you move the pocket, and on first and second down throws, when you want to throw it, you throw it far. Right? Because it's easier to catch the ball that Devontae Smith or the one that MVS dropped. It's easier to catch that ball in the rain than it is a bullet.
Yep.
Okay, so sustaining offense by just matriculating the ball down the field with passes, intermediate passing game, throw it out the window. Right. Just throw those on third down, first, second down runs, and if you have to throw it on first and down and take shots, throw it far. That's always been my philosophy in any inclement weather.
Good stuff.
One more thing. What would you think of, because you saw Kenny Gainwell was kind of usurped by Boston Scott. They both didn't play very much.
No.
But it was the Swift show. What would you think of putting a guy who hasn't played hardly at all is Rashad Penny, but he's a bigger back. What would you think of playing him today if it's really raining hard?
I don't think we're going to see Penny.
I don't either.
I don't think that they like the guy.
I think that's obvious.
I thought he came in a couple games ago and had 2 good runs. One was like 8 yards, another one was like 4 yards.
And then he pulled him.
Yeah, and he didn't play again.
It's like, I'm like punishing him. Like, we're not going to play you, and we're not going to release you to try to get you to play for somebody else either.
I'm like, whose mother did you try to talk to on the? Like, what happened? Like something happened. Yeah.
Something definitely.
Because I mean, the fact that he hasn't even gotten a shot. It's one thing. Hey, he didn't have a great training camp. Fine. You know, he's been coming off injuries and all that, so he didn't have a great camp. But I mean, he has truly been, you know, put in the back room with a dunce cap on, and they're just not. I mean, you know, it's he hasn't even gotten a shot.
No, but the two that he's gotten, it was good.
Yeah.
No,
It wasn't bad.
Jason's right, because decisions always tell you what you need to know. They won't play him because they don't want to. They don't want to use him.
Right.
It's obvious.
And they have a reason for that.
No,
which, you know,
there's definitely a reason. I'm definitely not saying anybody listens that he's innocent. What I'm saying is there's something that happened along the way. And most of the time it goes like this. The guy isn't bought into the culture. He wants to be an individual. That's usually one of the things. And the other ones is that he's not picking up the rest of the playbook, the things that matter the most, like blitz protection and being able to know where you are in a passing game and taking those things. Maybe he denied.
There's a reason. You're right.
There's a reason.
There's a reason.
Reasons.
I guess
Now, we're just speculating. I'm just saying those are the
for me
most.
is if you're on a 3-year contract with guaranteed money and you're doing that, usually you're not playing. They're trying to coach. They're trying to get you to change. If you're on a 1-year deal with a max of 600, usually you're not on the 50. They're like, we'll just cut.
Right.
They have kept him on the 53.
Yeah.
And as a famous Philadelphia athlete once said, for who and for what? Why?
Ricky. No, but he's an insurance policy. He's the fourth back, because if someone got hurt and they cut Penny, who are you
That's
going to
usually
go?
a practice
Only
spot.
But they don't have
the
anyone.
Eagles view the fourth back as an insurance policy. Like, why do we need 4 running backs? Like, it's a position that we don't want to pay around the NFL. You definitely don't need 4 of them.
I know you could give a little more carries to your highest paid running back, Boston Scott,
Oh my
if you
God.
wanted to.
$2 million
as an
to be a
insurance
third
policy.
back. It's
Unbelievable. All right, we're going to finish this off with a little bit more talk about the trenches before we get out of here. Got to thank our friends James and Zach, as we always do. They are behind the wheels again this year, bringing Inside the Birds pregame live from here at Fringe to you watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching it on, with these great graphics, high definition, and all that. We just want to thank them for all their behind-the-scenes work to bring this great show to life. Thank you, Zach and James. You guys are the best. Keep doing your thing. If you want to hire them to produce your show or podcast, email us at insidethebirds@gmail.com. We'll get you guys connected with them. All right. Finishing off, we were talking a little about the trenches. We're talking about Jason Kelce. It sounds like Lane Johnson's going to give this thing a go. We'll see if he warms up on the field. The weather may not be his best thing. I think it was interesting that you guys pointed out, Greg, you were saying that, yes, they might collectively be better than the individual parts, but I think the most fascinating thing about them being second in the NFL in sacks is that Von Miller has this many sacks. So he's clearly, as you mentioned, not back to the.
No, he's
not. Even
not.
close.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen him on tape. I mean, are you seeing?
Yeah, he only plays in some of the sub packages. He's not playing a lot of snaps.
Right.
So obviously they don't think he's back, or he'd be playing more. So again, I can't speak to how injuries heal and how could all of a sudden he be better? Do you hit that point where, hey, I'm better now?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But I can just tell you up to this point, he only plays maybe 20 snaps a game. They play sub almost all the time, but I mean, he plays clearly in passing situations, and he hasn't really been a factor as a pass rusher.
How about Leonard Floyd, though? Because this was a guy who had some pretty tough years early on in Chicago, turned it around with the Rams, and now I believe he has, he has already a career high with 9.5 sacks, which is a match.
He's had some really, he's flashed this year at times. And, he's got length, he's sinewy, he kind of moves well. They have a lot of length, like I said. I mean, that's the big issue.
Do they move him around?
They don't move him around a lot. Epinesa will move around.
Right.
He'll play inside and outside. Rousseau will play inside and outside, but Floyd is pretty much an edge player.
And is it usually over left tackle or right tackle?
More often than not, he's on the right side of the offense, the left side of the defense.
So it'll be a lot of Lane Johnson, assuming he goes against Leonard Floyd.
Right.
Epinesa, you remember him, Jay, I'm sure, from Iowa. I'm pretty sure he was a defensive tackle when he was out of Iowa. Was he an end? I thought he was a little bit bigger.
He was drafted as a power end.
Yeah.
To be a run guy, yes. And
he has the 2 gap at Iowa. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I probably thought
he was not seen as a pass rusher. He's actually improved. In fact, I talked to an area scout who had him whatever team he was with. And he goes, he did not see him as a pass rusher at all. In fact, he thought he'd be a 34-5 technique.
Yeah, he's not an explosive guy.
But he's shown a little bit.
He's one of those guys that's a really good athlete, but not explosive. Like,
Gotcha.
There's a lot of guys like that. They're good athletes. They move well.
Yeah, Russo a little more twitchier, right?
Yeah, Russo's an interesting guy. I mean, I remember doing him when he came out of the U, and on third down, he played a lot as a one technique. He moved inside his last year at the University of Miami, but he's long. He's pretty athletic. To me, they don't have the one guy that you say, wow. I mean, putting Von Miller aside, because he's not Von Miller.
They don't have Myles Garrett.
They don't have that guy that you say, we better watch him. We need to deal with him, or he could wreck our pass game.
Right, the way we
I don't
talk
think
about
they have
Josh
that
Sweat.
guy. Do you?
You know what? They figure out a way to get there, and I gotta think that even though that they're hurt in the secondary, their mixing of coverages, from what I've seen, has been problematic for a lot of people up front, and guys are holding the ball. So I don't see like guys just screaming off the edge and winning right away where you're like, whoa. But guys are holding on to the football.
But it'll be the interesting matchup to me is Oliver, because Oliver is super quick. He's an explosive athlete because he's only about 280. He almost plays the position like a running back, the way he's laterally quick. And, obviously Dickerson on left guard is a good player.
They got Linval Joseph on the team.
Yeah, Juergens is, he's back, and I think he's played well when he's played.
Yeah.
But Oliver does give that extra little ounce of quickness and explosiveness that can cause problems for any interior guard.
Are they a high volume stunt line game team, movement
At
team?
times, I wouldn't say high volume.
Okay.
They'll do it.
Because we've seen the Eagles at times struggle there because they've had some moving parts and the communication. I thought even against the Chiefs, some of the communication on
they got handed to them against the Chiefs. Let's be honest here.
They didn't have. I thought that was the Jets game was the game where the Eagles O-line really got handled.
Right.
This game against the Chiefs was the next game in which they didn't play.
Yeah, they didn't play well.
Do you think that was more confusion?
Chris Jones is just a different dude. Like, he's the only one. He's a guy, like, usually Kelce struggles with big guys.
Right.
And he usually can out-athlete other guys and be in good position. Jones is a big guy, but he's just as quick.
Yeah.
And there was times where he beat Kelce with quickness, and you never see that. You never see a guy beat him with quickness. You see him get beat with power.
Right. Yeah. I've kept some of these conversations in the back of my mind about, if for whatever reason the Eagles don't make or win the Super Bowl, and part of it is because the offensive line didn't perform to expectation. Some of these conversations that we've had quickly, but more than once, about the offensive line that we expect to always, and listen, I'm not trying to say the offensive line has not been good. That is not the point I'm trying to make. Just that we have a very high expectation. Everybody does of this offensive line. And I think this year we probably talked the New England game, the Jets game, this last game, about just overall not meeting that expectation the way it has in the past.
I was perplexed, and I agree with that. I was perplexed because Spagnuolo has always brought a nickel defender. He's always brought a slot.
Yeah.
Right.
So for Trent McDuffie to get as much pressure as he did was just perplexing to me.
Right.
There was one time they didn't even slide. He was free.
No one saw him,
Especially
by
since
the way.
you knew going in, because I would make the argument from watching tape for all these years that Spags does as good a job as any defensive coordinator in the league using defensive backs as blitzers.
Yeah.
So that going in, that's not a surprise.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap this up. Of course, we're going to go to inactives, which just came out.
Don't forget about Rashad Penny. He's inactive. Lane Johnson is inactive. He's inactive.
He's inactive.
He's inactive.
Yes.
Wow.
So it'll be Driscoll.
Yep.
Driscoll versus Leonard
And
Floyd.
it will not be 10 personnel.
Oh, boy. Okay. There we go. So that's why I brought that up, Jason. Okay. Here we go.
point.
Tanner McKee, inactive third quarterback. Rashad Penny, Josiah Scott, Lane Johnson, Grant Calcaterra, Dallas Goddard, and Milton Williams. Now, for the Buffalo Bills, the visitors, here are their inactives as they load up here. Boy, Lane Johnson being out, we'll see what they do. Okay. Oh, Deontay Hardy is inactive. He was not on the injury report. And he's also their special teams
Well,
returner.
there goes the shot play from Deontay Hardy that we were
Who
talking
hasn't
about.
really been a factor.
Right, and they're paying him a lot of money, over $3 million a season. Hardy, Taylor Rapp was hurt, Dane Jackson was hurt, A.J. Klein, veteran linebacker, Jermaine Ifedi, former first-round pick, Alec Anderson, and Poona Ford was a free
He's
agent
been
signing.
inactive for a number of
Doesn't
weeks.
play, yep. But the big one is Lane Johnson. So as We brought that up some minutes ago, and I agree with Jason.
And remember, they're down at tight end as well. So you say,
That's right.
we got to keep guys in more to block. Well, Alberto wasn't really known as a blocker.
No,
he's your second
he's
tight
not.
end. And Noah
they can
Tungiai
chip.
can block, but they don't want to probably play Noah Tungiai 30 to 40%.
Well, they'll
of
play
their
Stoll.
offense.
But yes.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll see it.
Wow.
They'll play Jack Stoll.
Interesting.
All right. That's going to wrap this up. Of course, we want to tell you about our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com, on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Let us get into our player to watch segment. Of course, it's brought to you by our friends at Garage Beer right here. We're going to taste some Garage Beer when we're done with this show. It's beer the way it should be. All right, let's go to our player to watch. Jason, who's the player to watch in this game?
I'm kind of frustrated with my player to watch because I didn't know it would be raining today, and I should know that because I have to check the weather for.
You're in like
sideline
three
reporter,
different
right?
time zones in 3 different days, so no one's gonna blame you.
I have AJ Brown because I just don't think that they're going to be able to hold him to one catch, and I don't know if it's in the best interest of the team if he doesn't get his catches.
I want you to feel rest assured, as much as you might doubt that. Greg, who's your player of the game?
I didn't check with meteorologist Adam Caplan before I made the pick.
Tropical Storm Kaplan.
So yeah. So with
Hour by hour,
with Storm
people,
Chaser
come on.
Kaplan here, so I also picked
Never done
AJ
that.
Brown because I felt after coming off a one-catch game, my guess is he might have said a word or two this week. That might just be a guess that he said a word or two.
Okay.
So knowing the secondary and the
Are you insinuating anything?
No, we're not.
so
saying
I picked
anything at all.
AJ Brown as well.
All right, AJ Brown. That's 2 for AJ Brown. Now, Adam, I know you don't want to change yours. You might love
No,
your pick
because I did it because I actually looked at the weather report back on Monday. Always look in advance what it's
Listen
going
to
to look
this
like
guy.
for all games each week. And I saw that it might rain. And then as we got closer, when you could see the hour by hour on weather.com on Thursday, I'm like, please don't rain. Please don't rain. Then when we woke up this morning, it looked like it would start raining at 2 o'clock. It did. And it won't stop till raining overnight. And unfortunately, not good for the passing. The over-under total, which I will get to that later, but I do like DeAndre Swift to be that guy.
All right, very long-winded way of just saying
Yes.
DeAndre Swift's your player of the game.
It is.
All right, DeAndre Swift, his player of the game. Now remember,
Like last week.
anything I say, I'm wearing a Michigan hat. So, I mean,
Well, he knows. He has
I lack
that hat.
credibility right now. It doesn't matter.
No. The hat makes you smarter. Go ahead.
All right, I am gonna go. I am gonna go with a wide receiver, not AJ Brown, not Devontae Smith. I think Stephon Diggs will be the player of the game. I'm seeing 10 to 13 catches, over 150 yards, getting inside on that inside matchup with Roby and Ricks, and going to town on it. So that's how I see it.
All right. So
right.
CeeDee Lamb is a 190-yard receiver against us. So Stephon Diggs is definitely 150.
Hey, you got to go with where the numbers are,
All right.
right? There you
That
go.
makes sense, though.
All right, as we mentioned, Eagles 3-point favorites, 48.5 total, according to our friends at MyBookie, Jason Avant, who you are on a 1-game losing streak, my friend.
I think most of us will.
I am.
No. We had
Got a little lucky.
We're tied now, huh?
Yeah, no, I have. I picked the Bucks in Monday night.
Oh, yeah, you're sure.
I'm way behind.
All
So
right,
go ahead. Who
all
wins the game? What's the score?
I got the Birds. 27-20.
I like Bird.
I think that was my story. My
Yeah,
score, right?
27-20.
27-20,
So
yeah.
you got a cover and an under.
Nice.
And under, yeah.
All right.
Definitely an under.
Greg, do you remember your pick?
I think so.
What is it?
31-17.
34-17.
you
Unless
go.
that's my
That's a high
type.
score.
No.
Oh, okay.
I just
Yeah.
think, again, I didn't know the weather report, but I just think they're better. And I think I think the Bills' offense is, quite frankly, I know the Eagles' secondary's had some issues. I just don't know if they can protect, and I think Josh Allen's going to move a lot. And I just think the Eagles are a better team.
I agree with you. The Eagles are a better team. You have a blowout win, cover, and well over the 48.5. Adam, what's the score today?
I've got it. Eagles 27, Bills 20.
Did you copy off Jason?
That's what I turned in on Friday. I just
Oh, that copied off him then.
Jason copied off you.
You notice how quickly I turned mine in, so you know I gave it at least
of course.
half a second of thought.
At least.
I did.
Yeah.
At most, I mean.
Again, I have the Eagles covering, which they're one of the better cover teams.
Yes, they are. The Eagles are one of the better cover teams. You have them covering, and in true Adam Caplan form, 47 total points would be under.
Which it probably will even go lower than that, but go ahead.
All right. I'm going to be the bad guy. Might as well, because I'm wearing a Michigan hat. Listen, I'll tell you this. I believe the Eagles are the better team. This is not about the the analysis. This is just
I was
about
picking the
shorter
Bills.
rest.
Are
the Bills
you?
have the longer rest. The Bills have more urgency right now. They need to win this game. And Lane Johnson out.
Oh, that's big. Good point.
Picking the Bills.
Was the line telling you something?
You smoke crack, don't
The
you?
line did. Like I said, the
why I
line
brought it
told
up.
me something. The line told me
What do you
something.
have? What's the score?
I have the Bills winning 34-27.
You're Mr. Over. I'm Mr. Under.
I am
Okay.
Mr. Over.
They're not scoring 34.
All right, we got to thank our
Yeah, I agree, I
sponsors.
agree.
Got to thank our sponsors: Garage Beer, Ocean Casino Resort, My Bookie, Sky Motor Cars, PHL Sports Nation, James and Zach. They're great people here at Fringe Bar on 140 North Columbus Ave. Thanks to everybody for watching the show. Send all your hate tweets to me for picking the Bills, and make sure you check out our coverage after the game on insidethebirds.com by Andrew DeCecco and Inside the Birds post-game live with myself, Adam Caplan, former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. That is on our YouTube and other social channels. So for Jason Avant, Greg Cosell, Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching Inside the Birds pregame live.